Well, hello everybody and welcome to Tech Talk Thursday. Hope your Thursday is going very well. We have a special guest with us today. We have John Sperian, who is going to be joining us in a couple of minutes. John is a LinkedIn expert and we're going to be talking to him about LinkedIn strategies. And also he's got a dilemma at the moment. He's looking for a platform for doing live streaming and other content on. So we'll be discussing some of his options today. But without further ado, Martin McKenna is in the house and is with us, all dressed up today. Martin, welcome back to the Tech Talk Thursday. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I am doing fine, and I'm eventually getting over my cold after about 2 weeks. So I'm feeling that I'm actually a bit less nasal, and so when I stick my headphones in, I'm not getting the echoes in the background or sort of, what's going on. Wonderful. So yeah, I'm feeling a bit better. So I'm sure I'm going to last the hour today, and I'm looking forward to asking John a lot of questions, and also for us to answer a few of John's questions. So
definitely,
we'll see how that goes.
Hopefully we can help him out. So John, give us a thumbs up if you're ready in the Zoom room, and he's ready. Let's bring him on without further ado. John, welcome to the show. How are you doing? Very nice to see you.
I'm very well, thank you, Neil and Martin. Thanks for having me on the show. Really excited about this, and looking forward to some good chat about live streaming in LinkedIn. So let's crack on.
Let's crack on. So for people who don't know you, John, maybe if you could give people just a very quick introduction of who you are, what you do, and where is your expertise?
Yes, definitely. So my name is John Espirian. I am based in South Wales in the UK. I call myself the relentlessly helpful LinkedIn nerd. My background is in software and hardware testing, which I did for a decade, and then I moved into technical copywriting, and then eventually I carved a niche for myself on LinkedIn. So these days I offer LinkedIn training and consultancy, and I run my own community for small businesses called Espresso Plus. I've also written a book and I run a conference as well. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell. A LinkedIn nerd.
Very busy man indeed. So Martin, over to you. I know you wanted to start the conversation off with John regarding some of the stream requirements, and let's get into that and see if we can help him out with what he needs.
Yeah, so I was already connected to John on LinkedIn, and he kindly dropped me a video note to say thanks for getting connected, which we'll come back to that a little bit later, actually when we talk about the LinkedIn side of things. But one of the things that I'd noticed is a pop-up notification from John saying, StreamAlive, I get the right term here, StreamYard have just doubled the price of their annual subscription. And why have they done that? And what's it all about? And by the way, I'm looking for alternatives now, because that seems ridiculous that they've done that. So maybe, Neil, before we get into the details of different things, perhaps you want to give a little bit of background on the StreamYard basically being bought out, and who has bought them out.
Well, yeah, so StreamYard has been purchased by a company called Bending Spoons, and they're renowned for really mixing things up when they take over companies. For people that don't remember, they were one of the companies, or the company that bought Evernote many years ago. I was a big Evernote user, and the same thing happened to Evernote. They sort of doubled their prices almost as soon as they purchased Evernote, and made it really just cost prohibitive for anybody to, well, for me anyway, to actually start continuing with it. So it sounds like they've gone in and done the same with StreamYard. And the story was that the two guys who actually started StreamYard actually asked Bending Spoons, could we buy the company back? And they refused. So those two guys who were the founders of StreamYard have gone off to do other things now. I'm not sure exactly what they're doing, but now StreamYard is left in this position where there was a rumor going around a few months ago that they were going to put up their prices. There's a few sort of rumblings on X, and lo and behold, they put the prices up, and then it was a big, whoa, what are we going to do? We're not going to pay for this anymore. And John, obviously you're one of the people that was affected by the significant increase. Was it 80%, I think, for the sort of tiered platform, one of the sort of the pro platforms? I think it was 80% increase, or something ridiculous when you compared it to what it was before.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I think, I can remember the numbers because I was looking at the members panel the other day, and it was $200 up to $391.88. I'm not sure why.
Okay.
Something that specific, but near on double. And yeah, for someone who doesn't have live streaming as a big part of my content strategy, I can't really tolerate that kind of increase, and that leaves me perplexed about, okay, what do I do then? Okay, fine, I can cancel this thing, but where do I go next? And I find myself here speaking to people who know what they're talking about, and perhaps you can guide me.
Yes. So let's take it a step further before we go giving guidance without investigating requirements, which is obviously a key thing here. So I know you've got the Espresso Plus community. How do you currently communicate with them? Is it Zoom meetings, or is it within another platform like Circle or Kajabi? How do you currently do that, and how often does that happen? How many people are in the meetings?
So for our live calls, we run those on Zoom. So there are multiple kind of surfaces through which we communicate. I mean, email, we've got a LinkedIn discussion group. I run a podcast as well. But in terms of live interaction on calls, it would be through Zoom. And that's worked really, really well for quite a long time. What I would love to be able to do is to have a live stream option that could go into a private group on LinkedIn, but LinkedIn have never opened up that facility, and I don't think there's probably any likelihood that they're going to. Our live calls don't get many live attendees because most of the people within our community tend to watch on catch up in our video library or listen to the audio version on our podcast. So it's rare to get very many people in there at all, but I'm already paying for Zoom because I use it for consultations and group training already. So I could accommodate up to 100 people at a time, but it's very unlikely that we'd ever get up to those numbers. So that capacity isn't something I really worry about, and the tech for that is fine. But my interest in live streaming, I suppose, is well, as a LinkedIn consultant and trainer, I need to know what the possibilities are for the platform because a client might ask me about those things. And it would be nice to sometimes go live to my public community and give them late breaking news and so forth. But it hasn't been the main part of my strategy so far because, frankly, I like to give people a tip and then get out of their way, in which case I might, my live video might end up being 1 or 2 minutes long. And I know that that's probably not a wise way of using a live video. You might as well just record something and polish it up and produce something that's pre-recorded. The one thing that I have actually used StreamYard for as a paying customer has been to record, doing some local recordings on both ends for people who are speaking at the Uplift Live conference. So we've done some interviews through StreamYard. I've downloaded local recordings, polished it up and produced those. But that's been the main use case so far. And again, there's just no justification for paying for something like that. So I suppose what I want to do is have the option of live streaming, but through a tool that I don't have to pay through the nose for. And if there are free options out there, even if it means that there's a bit of a learning curve for some of the things, then I'm fine with that because I'm naturally quite a techie person. It's just that I haven't quite assessed all of the options yet.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up recording as well as an option, and what you can do with recording, because that also kind of affects the choices, and it's about where the recording ends up and where it's stored, and is it isolated recordings for each individual that you maybe want to mix later, or things like that are all kind of important. So a couple of other questions for you. You've already mentioned you're tech savvy, so that's brilliant. Are you a PC or a Mac user?
I'm a Mac user for 25 years. Yeah, wouldn't touch a PC with a barge pole these days,
Bravo.
I'm afraid.
All right. Thanks for joining us then. Great.
Okay, thanks.
That's all we,
That's
all we need to hear.
You'd have been leaving quickly.
Yeah. We're all friends here.
And secondly, the next question, being as you're in South Wales, actually. I'm up in Edinburgh. I've got massive cable outside, so I'm interneted up to the ears. Neil is actually in Portugal at the moment, so he uses Starlink, Mr. Musk's wonderful Starlink. So those are possibilities. But what's your internet like where you are?
Yeah, I've recently moved house and I'm on full fibre broadband. I've only been here for about 3 weeks now, but it's been pretty solid so far. So I don't think I've got any complaints on that front.
Okay, so that's good news as well.
Yeah, definitely.
But it does affect the way that different things work. So if we go right back to basics here, there's kind of two sets of streaming software, and I don't think they've really got different names, so I'm just going to have to qualify them and saying one is app-based software and the other's cloud-based software. So the app-based tools are things like Ecamm, OBS, vMix, and then we've got the cloud-based tools, which are things like Restream, StreamYard, OneStream. They all got very similar names, so I'm bound to get some of them wrong. And there's a couple of others as well. Neil, throw in a couple of others.
Yeah, so I've put some in the chat, but basically for the browser-based platforms, StreamYard obviously, and then there's Riverside, which is a competitor of StreamYard and others. And Riverside is really aimed at sort of podcasters, interview type scenarios that we're doing today. They basically record locally at each person's machine, and then they push it up to the cloud to get maximum resolution and so on. There's lots of bells and whistles in Riverside recently with lots of AI components and some sort of editing and things like that. So Riverside is a really good option. Then you've got Streamlabs, or what used to be called Streamlabs, and it used to be called Melon, and now it's called Talk Studio, which is another StreamYard equivalent. It looks very much like StreamYard. And then the last one was EVMux, and EVMux is another sort of hybrid, smaller organization that uses browser-based software. So all those are basically browser-based. You don't need to install any app. It's similar to what you've used before with StreamYard. They're all very sort of competitive with regards to pricing. They all give you different sort of flavors of quality. Some are just 720, then you have to pay a lot more for 1080 and 4K if you want to do that. So those are the browser-based components that you might want to consider as an alternative to StreamYard.
So being as Neil has now just thrown a couple of other elements in there for you as well, John. Quality of video, 4K is obviously the ultimate goal. Everybody thinks they should have 4K. The reality is that unless you're on YouTube on a giant screen, 4K doesn't really matter too much. 1080 is really, really good, and 720 is probably good enough. LinkedIn is not going to allow you to have greater than 1080 anyway, so you're completely and utterly wasting your time if you're trying to stick 4K out to LinkedIn. It won't happen. So my advice there would be, don't worry about 4K. It doesn't matter. You're not trying to do wonderfully complicated, intricate YouTube stuff. So just kick that into touch to start with. So if it's 720 or 1080, you'll be okay. If it's less than that, then you don't want to be doing it, because 360 is the next step down. That will look awful. So just bear those things in mind. If you're using a Zoom account and it's free, then you're going to get 360 generically. So you don't want to be using a free Zoom account. That's obviously not a problem for you, but just for anyone else who's watching, don't try and use a free Zoom account and expect to get good quality. It won't happen. So I guess the next thing to look at is more or less what are the differences between the app-based stuff and the web tools. So the web tools, as you've already found out, StreamYard's pretty nice, and Restream is very, very similar in the way that it works. So if your requirements are pretty similar, then Restream is 50% off at the moment, Black Friday. So that might be a good option for you to look at Restream. I think Riverside FM's more sort of podcasty focused and is a bit more complicated. If you then move on to the app side of things, then there is more of a learning curve. So OBS and Ecamm, we'll just talk about those two at the moment, because otherwise we'll run out of time. But they're the main two. Ecamm is Mac only. OBS is not. You could use that on either. Ecamm is a paid tool. They will also have a Black Friday thing coming up. It's $32 a month as standard on the Pro plan, and you would need a Pro plan if you were going to be interviewing people. So that's the standard price. I don't know what the Black Friday offer will be, but I have seen Katie, I believe you know from Ecamm, has been putting out little teaser notes saying there's an offer coming out. So you might, if you go down that route, look out for that. OBS is free. So from that perspective, it's fantastic. It's PC mainly in the main, but it's more complicated to use than Ecamm, and does, because it's freeware effectively, there is a massive community with OBS and they're very, very helpful. However, there isn't a sort of an OBS support line that you can call up if you've got a problem. Okay, so that is where I'd see the main difference. And because it's freeware with lots of plugins, you get all sorts of varieties of quality of plugins. So some are really good, some are not so good. Nobody's really policing the detail of that. Whereas Ecamm, it is all coming through, you know, a known company with a support desk and 20,000 people in a Facebook group who are a great community. Neil and I are a bit biased because we're both in that community. So what I also wanted to do then, you know what StreamYard and Restream look like and will give you in terms of look and feel. So I've just taken the liberty of grabbing a couple of images off your website to let you see what it could look like if you were using Ecamm. So Neil's going to disappear for a little while here, and there'll be a lot of me and you on the screen, and that's because I'm getting projected into Neil's account, which means if I bring him on screen I get a kind of a tunnel vision thing going on, and it will not look pleasant. So it would be just you and I for a minute or two, but we could have something like this going on where we have got a countdown for John's group, and there's some little bits and pieces that are going on here that you can't do within the likes of Restream and StreamYard. So I've dropped in John's logo here. It's a little bit of a twist on the logo, a little bit of perspective on that logo. There's a drop shadow there, there's a drop shadow behind John, and I've dropped in some background which I just grabbed off his website, popped that into the background with John's logos on it here and a little ticker down the bottom. If we then just move on to some of the other scenes that I've got set up, then that background, as I've already set it up, will appear on every scene. So that's going to appear on every scene, but I can do things like blend in the comments to match your color schemes. So you'll see I've got little viewer name is in orange and the blue text as well, so just to blend it in looking nicely. But this looks kind of like you might get out of Restream or StreamYard, except for I've got some nice drop shadows and curves and things like that going on, and a bit of a 3D effect around the window, just to make it look nice. And this is all from just a standard free template. In fact, it's a template I created, and it's one of the things I do for my shows is create templates and then effectively give them away or sell them. So there's a standard template, but you might want to do something like this with your community. Now this, as you can see, this is just, you've just come onto a standard Zoom call. This is just a standard Zoom call. So I am bringing in all of my guests into a standard Zoom call. So you could do these with your community members, and where I brought up your wonderful book there, that could just as easily be a presentation or a website, fully interactive website, or anything else that you can think of where the book is at the moment. You could place it in there. And then I've also set up a couple of other scenes here just to let you get an idea of some of the differences of things that we might want to do here. So here, if I was hosting this meeting, we could have active speaker in the center there, and I could have some people in black and white or everyone in black and white. Then the active speaker from your community pops into the middle there. Or I could have something totally different and have something like this, where everybody was in black and white, and then you're in the middle there. So all I've done here is I've taken one of my standard templates, just it is, haven't touched it. All I've done is added in your logos and your backgrounds into that template to give me this, and there's 75 scenes on that template. They're all different, and laid out for you to go play about and use them. So that was my mini demo over, and Neil can come back in again, and John, I guess it's time for you to ask us some questions if you like.
That looks very, very cool. Yeah, so in those scenarios, then people would still be joining a Zoom call, but they would be having the experience of everything that you've just shown, looking like it's something that isn't really Zoom at all, but something quite elevated. Yeah, that's
so
really interesting.
So what Ecamm did about 6 months ago now, they baked Zoom into the Ecamm product. So when you open up the Ecamm product, we have a button that says Zoom, start Zoom meeting, and it kicks off a Zoom meeting. And what happens then is, because the two are linked together, I can invite effectively 8 of my Zoom guests onto the screen alongside me, plus the active speaker. So if we do use the Zoom active speaker, then that's 10 in total, or 9 otherwise. The other people in your Zoom meeting are still there in the Zoom meeting, but just not on screen with you. So they could still be dropping in comments and things like that.
And
But
those
I
comments would
absolutely guarantee-
automatically come up to the main screen at the
Up to the
bottom
screen.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to show you
if
one
Neil
right now.
drops,
Yeah, so so if you're looking at the production that I'm doing now, this is all done in Ecamm, and all the comments are coming in via LinkedIn, YouTube, X, whichever platforms you're multi-streaming to, and we can talk about multi-streaming in a second. So anything that we've done in terms of the production, everything that you're seeing right now is a Zoom call, as Martin said, but this is actually all done with Ecamm. So all these layouts, overlays, me zooming in your camera at the beginning, getting us all looking correct and everything, is just using the power of Ecamm and the way that you can do that. There's certain functions that Ecamm has way over and above StreamYard and others, but it depends on your type of production and what you can do. Martin's just popped another test message. I think you popped it in the Zoom chat, so I can bring up Zoom as well with so I can bring up Martin's Zoom comments, so people in the Zoom chat can also have comments shown, and it's a nice way to get interaction with your audience, but specifically when you're fielding questions. There's nothing worse than being in a big Q&A in a town hall using Zoom, and all you're looking at is the Zoom chat. So again, it's just a way of elevating and amplifying what your audience sees when you're doing your form of production.
Yeah. Now, I recall one, I'm not going to say it's a blocker, but I some time ago, there was some kind of issue with Ecamm supporting comments on LinkedIn Live. I don't quite understand what that issue was, but is that still an issue, whatever it was?
Yeah, so it's still for native comments from LinkedIn. Is basically LinkedIn hasn't given Ecamm the correct API to be able to bring those comments in. So the only way you can bring comments in at the moment is like I'm doing, which is using a third-party tool called Social Stream Ninja, which is just a free plugin. There's my LinkedIn comment that I posted before. So LinkedIn comments will come into here, and you can show them in a nice way like that. That's the workaround for now.
Okay.
Restream supports it. I also have a Restream account because I'm multi-streaming. So anybody that posts a comment on posts a comment on LinkedIn, it'll come in via Restream. Restream is fully supported in Ecamm. The comments can come in that way as well. So there's multiple ways of getting the comments in. So whilst it's not natively supported, there are workarounds that you can easily implement without too much difficulty if you just do into LinkedIn that work fine.
Yeah. Okay.
but with most of the scenarios that you talk about there, the likelihood is that you'd be doing a Zoom meeting anyway, in which case, unlike your regular Zoom meetings, because it's Ecamm, then you can bring the comments that are appearing in the Zoom chat straight onto the screen. So
Yeah,
sure.
for those members who are not actually on screen, if they just want to hide and put comments in, then you can bring those comments in and talk about them.
Yeah, I suppose I'm jumping forward to think about, well, if I'm going to invest the time needed to learn this tool, then that would probably encourage me to do some public lives as well, obviously on LinkedIn because that's kind of my business. In which case, I'd need to know that comments were supported. I wasn't aware of any kind of third-party plugin that would kind of solve the problem, but that's really interesting that that's possible. And I suppose another benefit of using an app-based solution, I'm guessing, is that if you've got a machine that's got plenty of grunt behind it, then that is going to lead to a smoother overall experience than relying on a browser-based, cloud-based system. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it all depends on what you're trying to do and the streaming resolution and things. So just let you know, I'm streaming this currently at just higher than 1080p but lower than 4K. I'm on Starlink and I'm using an M1 Max Studio, so it's not even the latest and greatest Max Studio. Ecamm runs pretty efficiently. I've got Zoom running, I've got all your cameras coming in, you're all coming in at 1080p and so on, and the experience is pretty good. I'm also recording this as well locally, so this is a full 4K or highest resolution I can get out of this recording, so for repurposing later I can chop this up and so on, and that's bringing it into your from your camera, into my system here.
Yeah. And in terms of multiple cameras, I'm thinking about, would it be possible to have multiple angles shown if some of my extra cameras are just actually spare iPhones on tripods? And would they need to be plugged in, or could that somehow be, I don't know, can they be
I can show you.
streamed in some way?
Yeah, I can. If I may, I'll just switch to me just for a second. So I've got a number of cameras set up here. Here's one I prepared earlier. So for example, I'm using the OBSBot Tailor over here. Now that is OBSBot Tailor is just like a webcam, but it's a hybrid webcam. It's got tracking and things. But I'm using something called NDI. So that's a network protocol. It's just connected to my Wi-Fi, and those cameras show up as an NDI camera directly in Ecamm. Don't have to configure it. Just enable NDI, and it comes straight in. As an example there. I've also got another camera, which is this old GH5, which is sitting on a slider over there, for example. And you can actually, with Ecamm, also do something with the camera effects where we did before. If you remember, I can, for example, take the same camera and I can zoom in here, and move it to one side. So that's one camera angle. Then I can switch to another camera angle, which is the same camera, but I'm just doing two different zoom levels. So there's lots of ways that you can manipulate and fool, like if you want to punch in to get closer to the audience, and if you've got something special to say, or whatever you want to do. There's lots of ways of doing it. Martin, I'll go full screen. Martin's got multiple cameras set up as well. He's got a couple of OBSBots and stuff like that. So you can just switch between them and so on. So there's lots of different ways you can play with these different cameras if you want to. In terms of iPhones, same thing. With an iPhone, you can use the continuity camera. iPhone's got the new iPhone sharing. I've got an app on here that I purchased. It's like $10, $15. It's called NDI Camera. It turns my iPhone into an NDI-based camera. So again, I could just put the camera up here, and I could just go to, let me just see if I've got the iPhone set up here. I may not have. Just one second. Yeah, so there's the iPhone. It's NDI. This is what my studio looks like right now. So there's the questions coming in. That's the thing. That's the Zoom meeting. So yeah, and you saw me do that live. It was like a couple of seconds to get that up and running. So you could, and that's all because it's native and easy to bring into Ecamm. All these cameras show up. There's no real limit of how many cameras you can bring into Ecamm. It's just a limit on your machine, as an example.
Good stuff.
And I would have to say that, iPhones are a very good second camera solution. They work really well. Just a simple iPhone. I've got one sitting on a stand over there. It just so happens that I got sent one of these little OBSBot tilt and pan cameras as well, but they are only, you can buy those for just about $150 or something like that, £150.
Okay.
So they're not expensive. In fact, they're way cheaper than an iPhone. But if you've got some older iPhones sitting around, then make use of those. The other thing you can do is connect in iPads as well. So if you wanted to, you could connect your iPad in and have that effectively as a camera. There's also a little app that you can get which will allow you to draw on the screen as well.
I can show you in a minute
if you
if I get it working.
Yeah.
Well, this is Q Neil plugging.
Yeah,
lots
I know.
Of
I have
things
to do
in,
it live,
but-
right? But I wasn't prepared for this.
Yeah.
But carry on talking amongst yourselves.
And given
Yeah.
that we're talking about interfacing with Ecamm, which is obviously Mac software, would there be support for using an Android phone as well? Would that work
on
or not?
NDI,
NDI, yeah. Mhm.
yeah, if you used it via NDI, then yes.
Yes. Okay.
Obviously, natively, the iPhone supports direct connection, so
Sure.
but even that can be a bit flaky sometimes, though. but
So the
getting it
NDI
to
option is
connect
the
to-
best one. Yeah.
It seems to be the simplest one for wireless connection. If
Yeah.
you've got a long wire, though, you can just connect your long wire directly into your Mac and it will work.
Yeah.
You
That's
probably
the
will-
bit of the challenge, because I think all of my ports are going to be kind of occupied as it is. So, yeah.
I was about to say, the first thing that you will find once you go down this route is that you're going to want to buy a powered USB hub of some description or dock. And the cow digit is the one that most people use. Once you've got that, you can actually just put tons of stuff in. You're never going to run out. But even I've got a Mac Studio, which apparently has got loads of ports, but I filled them up almost instantly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yes.
There are a lot of wires involved, I must
Yeah.
admit. But,
Sure. I've got the new Mac Mini's on its way, so that's only got
good.
5 sort of USB-C capable ports, and I'm sure that they're all reserved for stuff at the moment. So yes, I think a hub might be needed. But that's all good to know, and I can see myself certainly getting into this and giving it a spin. And I'll be thankful for the replay, because you've mentioned a few things that I was not aware of that I will need to review and check out on the marketplace to see what's in budget. And yeah, that sounds good.
And you can see I'm drawing on the screen right now. So this is just a
Yes.
sort of an overlay, and it's basically on my iPad. And I can see the same image that Ecamm is sending out to the iPad, so I can draw pretty accurately on there. And this is Video Pencil, and Michael Forrest is a friend, and he supports Ecamm and other different projects, and is a Mac user through and through. So, it's all safe Mac community here. Got quite a few people joining us as well. I think Miss Eileen is here as well, so there's quite a few people. Hello, Eileen, thanks for joining us, and hello, Mark, as well. So, yeah. Any other questions regarding the software? I had one question for you, actually. You mentioned that you wanted to just go live to LinkedIn. Is there options to do multi-streaming? The reason why I ask is because if you was to choose a browser-based software like StreamYard, that's got the ability to multi-stream to various channels. Restream, that's not all it does, but that's what its bread and butter is in terms of multi-streaming to up to 10 or 15 destinations. And Ecamm now has the ability to multi-stream to various sources directly natively within the app. Now, obviously, you've got to have decent bandwidth. That's why I use Restream. So I just send it to Restream and it distributes it to 3 or 4 different channels. If you've got the bandwidth, then you could simply, if you wanted to, on your Ecamm Live production, go to YouTube, go to X, go to LinkedIn natively, directly from Ecamm, not even having to use a third party, providing you've got the respective bandwidth. And if you're doing 1080p and you go into 2 channels, YouTube and LinkedIn, you're good to go with Ecamm. It's not a problem. And again, everything goes all scheduled in there. You can see all the streams coming up and everything. So again, it just depends on what you want to do. There's lots of options for you. We're certainly not pushing you down the Ecamm route. I'm a big believer in finding the right tool to do the job, but there's definitely benefits to using an app-based piece of software with the flexibility and the customization that Martin's seeing. And it just basically makes you stand out more than the regular Zoom call, as we're talking about here right now.
Yeah. So I think one other question I've got before we move on is, if I wanted to do the kind of classic offline interview style that I have been using StreamYard for with someone who doesn't use a Mac, then can I do that local recording on both sides and they just use the browser-based version to plug into Ecamm, or would I still be doing that through Zoom?
You would do it just through Zoom. So
Okay.
you're actually doing it through Ecamm. So Ecamm's baked, or Zoom is baked into Ecamm. But your guest, just like you've done today, would just, as far as they're concerned, they're just joining a Zoom call, and then you can record that at your end. But what you can also do, just to add a bit of LinkedIn flavour, if you wanted to, you could also put Ecamm into vertical mode, so that you're literally, this is going to sound a bit weird, but you're doing a vertical Zoom meeting, and you can record that vertical Zoom meeting, and therefore you can then repurpose that content back out to LinkedIn. As we know, allegedly they're promoting vertical video at the moment, but you could do an offline recording and then post it at a later point into LinkedIn. At the moment, if you try and stream live into LinkedIn in vertical, then what will happen is you will get the widescreen version with a little strip down the middle. That's what people will see whilst you are live. The instant that is finished and they start to look at replays, they will see them, if they look at it on their phone, in the full vertical format.
Okay.
So
Right. Understood.
when it's actually live, they don't appear like that. They will look terrible on your phone if it's live. But the instant it's finished, that recording is taken by LinkedIn and converted into the vertical format because you've streamed it to them vertically.
Nice.
So you can record it or you can do it live. I thoroughly suspect we will find that LinkedIn is going to allow you to do live vertical fairly soon, because otherwise why would it have taken that intermediate step that it's already taken, which says, oh, I've received a vertical live stream, oh, I better record it in vertical, which is what it's doing at the moment.
Yeah.
And I don't think many people know that, actually.
Yeah. I think we need to be careful when applying logic to LinkedIn, because they don't really follow through with it often. I mean, for example, there's been a lot of rumors behind the scenes that LinkedIn would have a native live streaming option. It's been talked about on 2 separate occasions. And now, just yesterday, they've completely flipped the script in terms of live audio rooms by saying, no, we're actually moving away from native, and now you're going to need to use a third-party tool like StreamYard or Restream or an RTMP compatible, broadcast software to manage your audio rooms. No one was expecting that. There's been no talk about it, and they've completely reversed what many people thought was coming. So trying to second guess what LinkedIn's actually going to do, even based on some hints that might be out there, is probably a fool's errand.
Interesting. It's funny that they take stuff away that they've been using. It's a bit like a Clubhouse feature then that they had, right? Or an X Spaces feature that they had.
Yes, that there is a live audio. It's a native live audio feature, and the thing that we've been asking for the longest time is the ability to record audio rooms. That and LinkedIn do record the audio rooms, but only for anti-abuse purposes. So those recordings are not exposed to the public, and then they're soon deleted afterwards. But what's going to happen on the 2nd of December is that native audio room feature is going away, and essentially we're getting the LinkedIn Live video live stream version for audio rooms. So it's like LinkedIn Live video, but just without a video feed. You'll be piping your audio in, and therefore there won't be this kind of live interaction that you have now. Because right now I could invite a guest from the audience up to the stage, have a chat, and then send them back down. You won't be able to do that. It'll be a pre-agreed set of speakers. They are the ones who go live through audio, and the audience just listens, and that's it. The only upside to this is that replays will be available. So that is a good thing, because you go from something that's ephemeral into something that's potentially eternal, but with a big downside of not doing things natively, and that barrier to entry might put a lot of people off.
Meaning you need a third-party software now, so something like what we're doing now. So we're streaming live to LinkedIn, and then as an event, and then it's also multi-streaming to Martin's account as well. And then obviously at the end of this live stream, it'll be there in my events list for future reference and replay and so on. But yeah, it's interesting how they sort of decide. And it is Microsoft, isn't it, at the end of the day? So who knows? They've got probably bigger things to to play with. Before we move on then to LinkedIn, any other sort of questions, comments from yourself, Martin, or John on this? Probably not made your decision any easier, John, but obviously food for thought with regards to what's available here.
Well, I think it has actually, because I'm now kind of really interested in what Ecamm can do for me, and seeing those templates from Martin was, solidified the discussion, and I think it's something I definitely want to experiment with more. And as a dyed-in-the-wool Mac user, it feels like this is a good fit for someone like me who's not scared of tech and happy to spend a bit of time learning. So really do appreciate that.
No problem. Well, all the links...
I'll tell you what you can do.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Martin.
I was going to say, I'll tell you what you can do. You can download a free trial of Ecamm, and I can share that profile with you. So I can just send you that profile, and you can load that straight up, and rather than you starting from scratch, then you'll have total profile already espressoed up,
fantastic,
ready for you to have a play with.
I was just going to say, sorry, all the links are in the description in the YouTube video, including a shameless plug to my affiliate links for Restream and for Ecamm as well, but you can get the free trial using those links, and Martin's site is in there as well, the Stream Profile site, some fantastic, I mean, this is a hybrid model of Martin's handiwork that you're seeing right now. So yeah, I'm so glad I met Martin. Makes everything look so much better when I'm making these things for these live streams. So yeah, everything is there on the replay as well for you, John, to get a view. So and Leanne, Eileen is very shocked at your comment there, John, about moving away from these audio rooms. She's saying it wasn't a terribly good idea in the first place. Not surprised they were removed, but there you go.
So when we gently transition into LinkedIn world, so in the run-up to this particular show, I mean, it's fairly new for us to be advertising the show on LinkedIn, but what I thought I would do is a selection of mini animated adverts, for want of a better description, on LinkedIn, and post those out, and then look at the number of impressions that they were getting when compared with exactly the same post with just a static picture stroke link on it. So identical posts sent out at the same time, one with an animated sort of GIF of us on jumping about the screen, and one with just a static link. And the results that came back in terms of impressions were the one with the animated version of it got about 100 impressions in half a day, and the one with a static link got 41 impressions in the same time period. Now, I don't really know what an impression is or means. However, what I am taking away from that is that the animated ones are either being promoted by LinkedIn, or the algorithm prefers them, or something like that. Can you help us out in terms of what does that mean, John?
Well, with my scientist's hat on, I would say you probably don't have enough data to be statistically sure that one format is working better than another. And to answer the point about what an impression is, well, it's simply whether a piece of content was loaded into the feed and could have been seen. Not that it was seen, but could it have been looked at? So I often think about it as the same as an old kind of classified ad in the yellow pages. Well, you flick through the pages of the book, and you had the potential to see it because it was there. It might have gone past your eyes in super quick time, but potentially you could have looked at it. That would register as an impression. But a true view of a video means that someone actually paused and looked at the thing for at least 3 seconds. And therefore, video views will always be a lot lower than impression counts. Past testing I've done suggests that video views are about 5 times lower than impressions. So if you're seduced by the impression number, that's probably the wrong number to be looking at. And more importantly than that, what is the engagement? Because that's something that can't be falsified. So did someone like the thing? Did someone comment on the thing? Those are real actions by real people. That's the important metric to look at, not impressions, which LinkedIn is at pains to say that these tend to be estimates. They can't quite work out, at what point in the feed was that piece of content, and what was the scroll speed and the dimensions of the screen. Was that a legitimate thing that genuinely could have been seen or not? And therefore there's a bit of fuzziness in that number. But the actual view count you might pay attention to, but I personally prefer the number of likes and the number of comments that something gets as a concrete metric towards it. My own testing in the past has shown that very short form pieces of content that are around videos and podcasts, especially things like those audio waveforms you see where you've got 30 seconds of a preview of a podcast, they actually don't perform anywhere near as well as a normal video, like a more traditional headshot, someone talking to camera that's 2 or 3 minutes long. Those really short clips weirdly don't perform as well in the data that I've looked at. But I suppose that my real answer to you would be to keep experimenting so you get enough data to know genuinely what works for you. It's certainly true that portrait mode video is being pushed in a very, very strong way by LinkedIn. It's been almost a couple of years since LinkedIn shared that 70% of all traffic on LinkedIn comes from the mobile device, which means that if you're going to do video, either square or portrait mode is really the winning ticket. And Microsoft announced in recent earnings call results that there's been something like a 36% increase in video shares on LinkedIn in the past year. And now that there's this dedicated video feed, it seems that they're kind of taking on, the mantle of trying to be the business version of TikTok with that feed. I think it's a very primitive stage. The functionality is not great. But that's, if you're going to create video, I think short form vertical portrait mode is probably the way to go. I've been on something called, what's it called now? It's not the LinkedIn Creator Community. It's the LinkedIn Video Academy. It's called. I was invited to take part in some calls with LinkedIn and some other people, and they were saying on that call that short form, get it under a minute if you can, and keep it portrait mode, and put your captions onto the video, burn them into the video, which would not be my normal style, and those videos are most likely to see visibility in the feed.
That's very interesting. Specifically around the vertical format video, we were and we are experimenting and playing with that format, and it's interesting that as soon as we saw that LinkedIn had put the little video portion in their app to allow the doom scrollers to go through and start looking at video, similar to what you see in YouTube Shorts and TikTok, then there's obviously something with an intention that they're trying to push. So that's very interesting. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
So just to step back a little bit for those who don't know, LinkedIn on their mobile app now are rolling out a button whereby you can go to the button and just click on the button and flick through video content only. And obviously you want to have that as square or portrait, as John has said, for it to be visible on your phone. Mm-hmm. That rollout is a bit weird because I don't have that facility yet. Yet Neil in Portugal does have that facility. I'm guessing from what you just said, you do have that facility as well, John D.
Yes, I've had it for some time. It depends on which user group you were assigned to when you joined LinkedIn, randomly assigned. And if you're in the right user group, you will get the feature. It's not geographically based. Almost never do LinkedIn limit their rollouts to geography. So it's just which user group you're in. Some people get lucky, other people don't. I think one of the things that it doesn't work very well with it is that it's not kind of context aware in terms of the orientation of your device. If you do see a landscape video in that feed and you flip your phone thinking, okay, let's look at it in its true dimensions, it will not adjust, which is really annoying. So just need to be aware of that. Maybe these things will develop over time. It's very clear that LinkedIn are pushing this because what they've started to do recently, and not everyone is seeing this, but I am, if you tap an image when using the LinkedIn mobile app, that image will open up almost as though it's the beginning of a video. And if you swipe up, you'll then start seeing other videos. So it's almost like a new route introducing you to that video feed, rather than waiting for you to tap the video feed button at the bottom of the screen. So very, very clearly LinkedIn are pushing this. And the general MO on LinkedIn is that when LinkedIn are pushing something, it's good to ride that early wave because there's a good chance that you get more visibility. So this is what happened when various new features come around, audio rooms, polls. When these things first start, they get pushed a lot. And we're in that nascent phase with the native portrait video feed.
Interesting.
So do you think they're going down the route of, I mean, they're bound to use the word AI because everyone does now, but almost like an AI feature in the background that is sitting there and saying people like John and Neil watched this kind of video and they have a similar profile to you. So the next one I'm going to show when you flick up is one that John and Neil have watched. Is that where you think it's going?
Well, in theory, that's the way it's meant to work, but all the practice shows that LinkedIn's algorithms for learning user behavior are just nowhere near as sophisticated as TikTok's. You sit there on TikTok for a day, by the end of the day, it knows your inside leg measurement probably. It just knows everything about you and it knows what will keep you engaged. LinkedIn, you need to use all of the negative signals to say, no, I don't want to see that. No, I'm going to scroll straight past that. And you need to do a lot of that sort of training to stop it showing you stuff. And it will take you, it certainly won't take you a day. It'll be a lot longer than that. So it's nowhere near as sophisticated. And in my experience, a lot of the stuff that does appear in the video feed is really quite irrelevant. It's quite shouty. And it's often from people I've never heard of and therefore I'm not invested in. I would rather see a video feed of the people I know first. And it doesn't do that at the moment, but maybe it will develop that in the future. The thing you have to keep in mind is always follow the money. What is LinkedIn's motivation here? A large part of their business model is based on ad revenue. So now can they get this video feed to work so that they can start pushing companies to place video feed ads so that they can get priority in the feed? At the moment, the main LinkedIn feed is composed of 25% ads. I don't think it's anywhere near as high as that for the video feed, but if it's a success, then surely they will do that and they will want companies to either sponsor individual thought leaders or for the company themselves to put an ad spend behind appear in the video feed. That must be coming if the feed is to be successful from LinkedIn's point of view. From the user's point of view, we don't want to see ads, but it's always a case of follow the money with LinkedIn. And I think this is one of the reasons why, just to hark back to what we said about the audio rooms, the reason that audio rooms are going away in their current format and that LinkedIn has effectively outsourced the tech to the likes of StreamYard and to the likes of Restream is because they've sacked a load of engineers and there's no financial payoff from people having loads of audio rooms. They're free to attend. There's no adverts inside them. That doesn't attend LinkedIn's end goal of making as much money out of members as possible, and therefore they won't be developed. If they can put ads into the video feed, then they'll be very interested in developing it further. But we're just at that early stage where things are still developing and there's not much ads. And so you'll get good visibility if you get involved, but fully expect that feed to be full of ads if it's going to stick around for more than a year.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just a couple of comments have come in, just talking about video real quick. So Mitzi saying that she uses Authored Up, which gives the engagement rate of my posts, and she finds that with video she's getting around 2%. And then interesting, some of her posts with images have got 4 to 5. So again, it just depends, I guess, on how LinkedIn is treating those posts that she's doing. And last comment from Anisha and Sanjay. Found posting a video directly into LinkedIn rather than just posting a YouTube link, you get better engagement and impressions. It also autoplays when somebody is scrolling their timeline. Yes, I mean I've tried to do that. Just put and it doesn't like it, and we've talked about this as well, Martin. LinkedIn wants to keep the media on LinkedIn's platform. It doesn't want to do any external links. So obviously you're going to get penalized in some way regarding that. interestingly. And yeah, what you mentioned
Yes.
about TikTok, TikTok actually uses in the video on your camera for looking at your expressions when you're actually looking at feeds and things like that. So that's how it knows whether it's a good or a bad one. That's what it basically what it does, and that's why TikTok is supposedly trying to be banned in the US, just to give you some idea about what TikTok actually does from a security perspective. But anyway, hopefully LinkedIn is not going to do that to find out whether we're really liking this video or not. But yeah, be warned, TikTok users.
In terms of the native video versus linking to YouTube, and this has been true for the longest time now, it's really, really good idea to upload your video natively to LinkedIn. You can upload up to 15 minutes of native video in one hit to LinkedIn, and LinkedIn relatively recently reduced the size of external link thumbnails on posts. So unless you're paying for a company page advert, so if you are linking to YouTube, then people are going to see a very small thumbnail, and that post is probably not going to be exposed in the feed as much as a native video upload would be. So if you've got the source file, then upload it. And I would also recommend, if you're going to do that, make sure that you get your captions sorted, because that will improve the accessibility of your content too.
Yeah, it's almost like shorts and so on. Go ahead, Martin.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm sort of winding back a little bit here as well, and in history as well. So when I was previously wanting to get my posts to hang around and my videos to hang around, and I was in the corporate world, what I would do is effectively what I think is termed social amplification. So what I would do is I'd say, right, 10 people who are in my staff, I'm about to put a video out. As soon as that video goes out on LinkedIn, I want you to go and like the video, and I want you to go and comment on the video. And I want you to do that within an hour of it going out. Not 24 hours, got to be within an hour. And I found that used to work really, really well in terms of the video's performance and it hanging around, but only if I got them all to comment and like in a very short period of time. And I kind of assumed that I read it somewhere and tried it out, and then it worked, so I kept doing it and it did work. But I don't know if LinkedIn has suddenly got more aware of people trying to game it, and whether that works anymore, and whether you have any thoughts on that, John.
Yeah, so that golden hour of engagement, that window of opportunity has been expanded as a countermeasure to the people who are in engagement pods. So where you get into this alliance with people maybe you don't know, not necessarily friends, but people who are just supporting each other's content so that they can all get more visibility. I mean, doing that is definitely gaming the algorithm and explicitly goes against what's in LinkedIn's professional community policy. So be very careful of doing something like that. I haven't seen much evidence that people are actually being booted out for doing it, but it does actually go against the rules. So to be careful with that. But what I've also seen is that window of engagement is being expanded so that people don't just hack the algorithm by making sure that comments within the first hour amplify their reach. Also, another recent change is that LinkedIn are reducing the impact of when companies post things and getting all of their employees on board effectively. That's like a corporate engagement pod where, there's some edict that comes out from senior management saying, we're posting something, all of you get on board and support this, and posts that follow that kind of trajectory are not being amplified as much as they used to be. So that's LinkedIn getting wise to the fact that the content probably isn't very good. What they like to see is something much more organic. So if you start attracting comments from people who are second and third level connections of yours who don't necessarily have a tight network with you already, and especially if they're leaving long comments, this is why short comments are terrible, because they're often associated with engagement pods. But someone who's spending time writing a paragraph of text, for example, is clearly investing some time. And because LinkedIn can't really assess the quality of a piece of content, they use things like comment length as a proxy for quality. If someone is pouring time into this post by commenting on it for 5 minutes, there must be something interesting there. Ergo, let's amplify it to our audience. So what you need to do in your content is optimize for conversation. Ask a question or share something that elicits an in-depth response that you can then carry the conversation going, because the more comments you can get with substance and comments that also receive their own replies, that's jet fuel. That will really accelerate your visibility.
So we are at the top of the hour already. I can't believe it's already 6 o'clock. Where does the time go? I don't know if we've got time for one more question, John. I think you said you got a few more minutes that you could hang on for. I
can stay on for another 5 or 10 if you need me to. Yeah.
So, sure. Martin, do you have one more question for John? I think this definitely warrants another full show just to talk about LinkedIn and John's technical expertise. Go ahead. Final question.
So it might be a long answer as well.
That's okay.
Well, we sort of briefly skirted over LinkedIn ads just there, and who was sponsoring them, and the desire for LinkedIn to have more of them. I've been on LinkedIn forever. I've never ever responded to any ad ever on LinkedIn. However, I'm kind of wondering, is it worth putting an ad onto LinkedIn? Does anybody respond to them on LinkedIn? Well, what are ads all about on LinkedIn? If I, in my, 15, 20 years, it's 20 plus years I've been on LinkedIn, I've never responded to one. No. I've never posted one. So what's the value? What's the purpose? What's the payback? Are they worth it?
Well, I don't really use ads myself either. I'm 100% organic myself, and I don't really respond to ads either. But they do have a place. You can only place LinkedIn ads via a company page. That's one compelling reason to have a company page, is that you can't place one if you just have a personal profile. The cost per click for a LinkedIn ad is much higher than other social networks. If you know how to optimize your ad spend and optimize your copy, then you can get that spend right down. I've got a few trusted people who run LinkedIn ads in my community, so I could certainly refer you. And we've actually got the world's #1 ads guy for LinkedIn, who's coming to speak at our conference next March. So I'm sure I could introduce you to him if you actually want some advanced help with LinkedIn ads. But I don't use them myself, and I grew my LinkedIn following to over 30,000 before I even paid for LinkedIn Premium, let alone placing any ads. So you definitely can grow organically without placing ads. Arguably, it's a longer, slower burn, but I think all the more satisfying for it, because you don't feel like you're selling at people, which is what ads tend to be like. So yeah, that's probably all I've got for you on that one. But as I say, I'm happy to make introductions to people who know a lot more about that topic than I do.
All right.
Okay, thank you. I mean, that's informative in itself, which it more or less said to me, probably don't bother.
I suspect not. Yeah.
I built up an events company without spending a penny, just on LinkedIn. So I mean, it was a very narrow market space in Scotland, but that. It all worked with no adverts whatsoever and no marketing. It was just through LinkedIn. So, okay.
My whole thing is about turning up.
Ads off.
My whole thing is about turning up and developing your personal brand and showing up on a consistent basis. So in your case, if you haven't particularly been active on LinkedIn before, but you want to be known for your skills in, let's say, creating eCam templates or just being a video expert who can share the kind of stuff that we've talked about today, if you do that with a consistent look and feel and do it as kind of appointment content, you're going to turn up every Thursday at a certain time and you're always going to talk on a certain topic, you will eventually be remembered and referred, and you won't need to spend a penny on adverts. It'll just probably take a while before you penetrate people's psyche enough to be that chosen person. But that's the route that I've been taking on LinkedIn, and here I am talking to lovely people like you, and you probably wouldn't have found me if I didn't have some kind of personal brand presence on the platform.
I mean, that's absolutely right, and I think we're trying to be more consistent with our shows, doing it every Thursday at a regular time and so on, and showing up on LinkedIn. There is one question, and if you can answer this in like yes or no, I think it's a yes or no question, but maybe worth more time at another point, from Mitzi. Is it worth paying for LinkedIn Premium?
It's a very, very common question, this, and I liken this to driving a car. If you can't drive your family car well, don't go and buy a Ferrari because it'll be a wasted purchase. Um, you can get a lot out of the free version of LinkedIn, but if you're at the limit of how many personalized invitations you can send, or you're at the limit of how many monthly searches you can do before you get blocked by LinkedIn, or you're at the limit of how many free messages you can send to non-connections that you're trying to pitch to, and things like that, or you want to use LinkedIn Learning to really develop your knowledge, then fine, it might be a worthwhile thing to do. But make sure you've mastered the basics of the free version of LinkedIn, and then you upgrade. I'm a LinkedIn trainer, and I only upgraded after I got to plus 30,000 followers. I wasn't paying them a penny before then, and literally the only reason I upgraded is because one of my clients said on a Zoom call once, "This guy's a LinkedIn trainer, but he doesn't even have a gold badge. Should we even trust him?" And I thought, well, this is a reputational thing more than actually a features thing. Now, LinkedIn, again, following the money, they want to get as many premium subscribers as possible. They're now starting to introduce features that are only for premium. So if you want a premium custom button, for example, then you pay for the service. Or if you want to send unlimited personalized invitations to new connections, then you need a premium feature. So there are actually compelling reasons to do it, but it's not a cheap thing. I would say master the basics and then move up, but not before. Otherwise, you're wasting your money.
Great advice. Thank you so much, John. And yeah, you heard it here first. Master your craft first before you start to pay the money. Yeah. It is nearly 6:10, so I'm conscious of your time. I just want to first off say a big thank you to John for joining us today, and Martin, thanks for all the work that you do and getting this organised and getting John on the show as well. John, I think it does definitely warrant another show, and you're very welcome to come back anytime. If you'd like to come back, of course, we'd love to have you.
Happy to chat anytime.
And we could spend a full hour on LinkedIn as well. So I'll just go to my screen for a couple of seconds and just let people know all about what's going on. So all the links for today's discussion with regards to OBS and all those platforms, as well as links to where you can find John, Martin's site, and everything else is in the YouTube description. It'll also be in the LinkedIn description as well. Go and find all that information out. Next week, we'll be back, same time, same place. We have another guest coming on. You'll see that on the end screen. Thank you, everybody, for your time today. Wonderful to see everybody in the comments. Thanks to everybody who's joined. Sorry I couldn't say hello to everybody. We've had some very good discussion today, very worthwhile, and hopefully John will find his platform of choice to start doing his live streaming on LinkedIn. So until next week, thanks everybody, and I'll see you very soon.